Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Hero Movie Podcast, your greatest source for superhero movie discussion in the multiverse. I am your host, Adam Portrais, and I'm joined by Sean Keenan.
Holly's been through a lot this week, but she's still kicking.
Kicking it, man. And Bruce Leslie.
I'm a prickly pear, and apocalypse made my hair fall out.
It does for everybody. Male pattern baldness is always caused by apocalypse. We know that. Thanks, guys, for kind of, sticking with us for kind of our sort of week off, I guess, if you will. We launched Preacher Podcast to a quite a surprising, maybe not surprising might not be the right word, because we thought it was going to do awesome. And apparently a lot of people are out there digging it, man. So thank you guys for doing that and, downloading last week's episode as well. But do not fear. We're not going to just keep, skirting HMP to do some of that Preacher stuff. We will still be doing that, and you're still going to get a full show here every single week. But we decided, hey, let's kind of do a little something special and stuff like that. So thanks for holding out for the, little later episodes. But we always get them in there, man.
And if you listened to last week's episode on the HMP feed and you liked it, you need to go on over and subscribe to Preacher Podcast if you haven't yet.
Absolutely.
And for those of you who are listening for the first time from Preacher Podcast, welcome.
Indeed.
Ahoy, mates.
They're like, is this a seafaring podcast? What's with the ahoys?
Yes.
What a bizarre thing. But yes, HMP's been around here a while if you just came from the Preacher Podcast. And, we got a lot of people that enjoy this program. And, if they're the most awesome people in the world, they drop on down to the iTunes and give us a 5-star review, a.k.a. Humdinger.
Humdinger?
And this was from our good friend Cap'n Sanders. It is entitled 10 out of 10, A++. That's 2 pluses for you, kids.
Wow. Dang, that's rare.
And it reads as follows. I always look forward to listening to this podcast on Monday nights while I'm at work. It's a great listen to episodes reviewing films and shows that I'm already familiar with, but the episodes covering content where I haven't seen are just as insightful and entertaining. I will say that I am slightly butthurt over your opinions on The Crow, mostly because of fond memories of watching the film as an emotional teenager. But that episode...
For the record, I gave it a thumbs up.
That's true, he did. But for that episode was still a worthy listen. Keep up the great work and take this humdinger as my way of saying thanks for providing us all exceptional content. Thank you, Cap'n Sanders. We appreciate that. And if you appreciate what we do here, we just, take 2 seconds out of your day, drop on down to the iTunes, give us a 5-star review, a.k.a. Humdinger. And that will help get this podcast out to more people who enjoy this nerdy discussion such as you. Now, I won't go into reading it here and everything, but we're going to do a quick thing before we get into this week's new release review, which is X-Men Apocalypse. I always want to say Age of Apocalypse because that was a storyline.
Yeah.
But speaking of comics, though, we got a, and I feel we have to address it because it's from an executive producer. Our good executive producer, Beta Fu, kind of wants to get our reaction on the whole big hullabaloo. If you've been living under a rock and hadn't seen stuff on the news feeds and whatnot, turns out Captain America, he kind of had a little secret for a while. He's Hydra.
Are you throwing it to me?
Yeah, I was throwing it to you. Oh, I figured, of all of us here, I'm sure you've read it already.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure that, he said Hell Hydra in the last page of the comic, so sorry for the spoilers there, guys. But,
everybody's seen it. It's become a big thing.
Or any other kind of news outlet, you've already seen that. And I'm 100% absolutely positively sure that it's going to stay that way forever and never change.
Oh, of course,
That's
like all the things. Co-host of the Preacher Podcast and my other podcast, The Film Find, Matt Smith, posted a little something on Facebook. It's like, oh, yeah, you remember that time when Captain America was also a werewolf?
So I love Capwolf. I don't know how Hydra Cap's going to go, but I love Capwolf.
Things don't always stay the same. They're different. People die. People come back alive. No one in comics is ever dead.
Funny? You know what's so funny about this news too is that it completely dwarfed everything that's going down in D.C. this week. And there's a lot going down in D.C. this week, but all anybody wants to talk about is Captain America is a member of Hydra.
And where is my quality Dr. Manhattan talk that we should be having about Rebirth right now? Go to Chubby Wizard to hear that.
That's where you can find. Look at that. I love it. That's what you call professionalism, Sean. He's slipping them in there and you don't even know.
Professional what?
Yeah, the title of this week's Chubby Wizard is Apocalypse, Rebirth, and Hell Hydra. So it's got all that good stuff in there.
A little bit of this, a little bit of that, and the other. I enjoy.
That's funny. Good job by you. That's a good job.
But yeah, man. So I don't know. It's a very interesting thought. I don't see any of these big giant, kind of quote unquote reveals and stuff as being like, here's the thing. I mean, I think these guys, they got a way out of it, or if they don't, they just kind of, foot around it as best as they possibly can and come up with some, it's all in Franklin Richards' pocket.
And I was going to say that this is essentially a period of Marvel Comics that is a sort of like Heroes Reborn Part 2, because at the end of Secret Wars, Franklin Richards rebuilt the Marvel Universe. So, who knows what he did?
Who's to say? We're not going to say. So, because it'd just be silly conjecture. There's probably only going to be 50 more years worth of conversation about this bit. But let's get into it, gentlemen. Here is a trailer for this week's new release review, if I should turn off the other thing first. Here's the trailer for X-Men Apocalypse.
I saw the end of the world. I could feel all this death.
Jean, it was just a dream.
You wander through the willows in the forest you have found.
I've been called many things over many lifetimes.
Trying to hide.
Ra, Krishna, Yahweh.
Ever since the world found out about mutants, there have been secret societies who see them as some kind of second coming or sign of God. They believe that tens of thousands of years ago, an ancient being was born, the world's first.
Mutant. You are all my children. And you're lost because you follow blind leaders. But I am here now. I'm here for you.
Wherever this being was, he always had 4 followers he would imbue with power.
Like the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. You got that one from the Bible.
Or the Bible got it from him.
What is it? Oh, God. He can control all of us. The world needs the X-Men.
That's why I'm here. To fight.
Not all of us can control our powers.
Then don't. This is war.
Everything they've built will fall! And from the ashes of their world, we'll build a better one!
I've never felt power like this before.
All right, that was a trailer for X-Men Apocalypse, our new release review of this week. IMDb plotline. With the emergence of the world's first mutant apocalypse, the X-Men must unite to defeat his extinction-level plan. This is directed by Bryan Singer, written by X-Men stalwart Simon Kinberg, starring James McAvoy, Michael Fassbender, Jennifer Lawrence, Nicholas Hoult, Oscar Isaac, Rose Byrne, Evan Peters. There's a crap load of people in this, as you might imagine with the movie starring X-Men. There's a ton of them in there. I won't go over all of them. But you know what I will do? I'll go over to our good friend Bruce Leslie. There was something in the 90s that had something to do with Apocalypse. There were about 8 billion issues, if memory serves. Bruce, let's break down a little bit of that for us, will you?
Well, we're going to go back a little bit further than the 90s. We're going to go all the way back to 5,000 years ago in a remote part of the Egyptian Empire in what is present-day Jordan. An unusual child was born. He was shunned by his parents for his gray skin and blue lips, and the infant was left out in the desert to die. Against all odds, the baby survived without food or water in the blistering sun, and I imagine he was getting sand in all the most uncomfortable parts of his Egyptian huggies until he was discovered by Bel, leader of the Raiders of the Crimson Sands. I guess the Ark hadn't been lost yet. Anyway, he admired the baby's ability to survive, and he raised him as his own son, naming him En Sabanur. Now, Wheezy Simonson created the character Apocalypse and intended the Egyptian name to mean the first one, but more learned linguists have informed us that his name really means good morning. So with a name like Good Morning, that makes Apocalypse seem a little bit more like an ancient mutant Mr. Rogers than a bringer of doom.
Well, hello, I'm Apocalypse. Good morning to you.
Now, in the original X Factor story where Apocalypse was revealed as the secret employer of the Alliance of Evil, not to be confused with the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, or Wall Street, but originally the big bad guy revealed was supposed to be the Owl. Now, imagine that. If that had happened, maybe we would be reviewing X-Men Leland Owlsley today. Now, Wheezy, along with editor Bob Harris, decided to instead introduce a new character, one whose power was immense, one who would seem insurmountable for the heroes, one who is in no way like Darkseid or Thanos, other than the way he looks and his sort of royal heritage, and his ability to have pretty much any superpower at any time. While he was still back in Egypt, he battled against a pharaoh named Rama-Tut, a character that we now know as Kang the Conqueror, because once you've got a time machine and you can go anywhere, anytime ever, why not go to the place and time where the most powerful and despicable mutant is at his most active? Now, in order to maintain his immense power, Apocalypse had to take really long naps, like hundreds of years long. But he did wake up in the 1400s just in time to turn Vlad the Impaler into Dracula, and then again during the Victorian era to turn Nathaniel Essex into Mr. Sinister, who, if we're being honest, looks a lot like Dracula. So I guess old Apocky was probably kind of a one-trick pony. Now, in the 1980s, when he woke up again to harass the X-Men, he assembled a support staff of middle management mutants that are referred to as the Four Horsemen. Though I'm sure he was tempted to pick Ric Flair, Tully Blanchard, and the Anderson brothers, he instead picked Plague, a Morlock that would serve as Pestilence, for obvious reasons, I think. An ex-soldier named Abraham Kuros, who was in an iron lung, but when he was restored to his former glory, he could kill people by clapping his hands. He became known as War. Autumn Rolfson was an anorexic mutant with the ability to make people really, really hungry, and she served as Famine. And of course, most famously, Warren Worthington III, who had recently had his wings clipped, was chosen to serve as Death. Now, in their first battle, this modern-era group of horsemen were defeated by Power Pack, because when your name is Wheezy, you can make anything happen. Now, Apocalypse is never really defeated so much as he usually is just convinced to take a nap. One thing that we do know is that in the 36th century, he conquers the world, and we enter into the Age of Apocalypse. That is, unless the time-traveling son of Cyclops and Madeline Pryor can find a way to stop him.
I mean, okay. So I've never been like a huge Apocalypse fan. Anybody else?
No. I always thought he was kind of lame in the comics. Never really captured my attention too much.
My favorite is that Batman villain that's a puppet.
Yes.
I'm down for that too. So here's the thing. So like this movie is coming off of some fairly successful X-Men movies. You got First Class there, then you had Days of Future Past, and now this. We're kind of going in an all brand new timeline here and everything.
And people loved Days of Future Past, both critics and viewers alike. So there were some tall shoes to fill with this entry into the X-Men franchise.
Well, I don't know if you'd call me a fan or a critic, but I liked it.
Oh man, I was probably a little over enthusiastic about how much I liked it the first time I saw it. I had to give myself a couple of days to calm down and make up my mind about Days of Future Past, but I really like Days of Future Past.
When he says that, I picture Bruce kind of doing that little Homer Simpson dance where he's like flailing his hands back and forth, going
very much like that during the original Quicksilver scene.
Well, I mean, and we'll talk about it later, but I mean, we've definitely gotten to the point of if it ain't broke, don't try to fix it kind of thing. But let's be honest, man. The reviews and stuff, especially from critics for this thing, have been pretty brutal, man. And so I'll be honest with you guys, going into this thing, I was not super excited.
I definitely was concerned, but I think the critics are wrong. I'm going to show my hand a little bit early. I'm not going to say how much I liked it or disliked it, but I will say that I think the Rotten Tomatoes score is unfairly low, much like I felt about a couple of other movies we've talked about recently.
And I'll talk about why I think some of that is when we get to proper review time and everything. But no, I mean, like I came into this with super low expectations, and I gotta say, overwhelmingly, they really surpassed those. I thought this was overall. I thought this movie was good. I enjoyed what they did. Does it have problems? Absolutely, and we'll cover those problems. But it was not. And maybe it was just going in with those lowered expectations. But I was kind of blown away by how decent it was. And one of the
man. I mean, it's big and dumb and stupid, and people who don't know anything about the X-Men should never see this movie. But I really enjoyed myself. I mean, I get why people don't like it. I'm just not one of those people. I thought it was a good movie.
And, I think it kind of falls a little bit in between, because if you know too much about the X-Men, it's too easy to pick apart all the ways. And believe me, this X-Men universe has always strayed from the source material, but they're straying even further ever since First Class. So if you know too much about them, it might bug you. If you don't know anything about them, you might get lost. So I think this is really trying to hit that golden mean, and maybe it's working, maybe it's not. We'll see how the box office plays out over this 4-day weekend.
Yeah, I mean, fans seem to be liking it for the most part.
It's done pretty good at the, it's number one this weekend. It's not Civil War numbers, but it's definitely nothing to be ashamed of.
Well, do you think that they were going after Civil War numbers? I don't think so.
I don't think realistically in their minds they would think they'd be able to. I mean, because it's tough,
I think, though, they might be going after Deadpool numbers.
Well, I mean, here's the thing, though. This is a budget that's going to be probably, my guess is, I don't know right off the top of my head, I'm going to say 4 to 5 times at least the amount of the budget on
I read it was about 3 times Deadpool.
Okay, well, fair enough. That sounds fairly close there. But, I mean, you're looking at 74% user, on this with Rotten Tomatoes, and critics are at 48. So critics did not like this. But here's also something I want to talk about because of that. Is I think we've gotten to the point, especially with like X-Men movies now, but more and more comic book movies as they come along, but especially X-Men because they've been the stalwarts in the cinematic offerings for a decade plus now.
Yeah.
And I think critics at this point are becoming like comic book nerds are. They think they know everything. And
you think that just started happening?
Yeah.
Well, no. I
don't think that's recent.
But it feels like it's more. It feels like it's more for this movie. Like they're just like, I know what this universe is. I know what's important about this stuff, and this strays from it. And it's just like, no, you really don't know what this kind of stuff is about. Because I watched this movie with my dad, who is a longtime comic reader from the early '60s. And we both sat at the end of this. I'm like, and we were both like, I don't know what they were complaining about. This was it was a fun movie. It was obviously, more dark as a lot of these things tend to be, but I still had a fun time doing it. I like the fact that, we're set in the 80s. People talked about how like the clothes and stuff were distracting. I didn't find that at all. I mean, I thought it just placed you properly in that time.
Well, actually, if you look at Scott Summers as a high school student in 1983, but in 2000's X-Men set in the near future, he looked like he was about 28. It just doesn't add up.
That sounds about right.
Good use of "well, actually," Bruce.
And that's what some people are complaining about. But you know what? I say all bets are off. Make a fun movie. Worry about how the parts piece together later, so I think the number one responsibility of the filmmakers is to give us something we'll enjoy, not to be chained down by what they did in the past.
No, and I will say this, and it's pretty much known throughout the universe that we're phasing out Wolverine, man. He's going to do one more big movie, and Hugh Jackman is giving the world a big old kiss and walking away. And
it's fun. It's funny you should bring that up, Adam, because it's one of the things that I thought about while watching this movie. Because I saw it last night. Packed theater, by the way, not a single seat left.
Nice.
Yeah, pretty cool. I think that they've actually got not one but 2 people to take the place of Wolverine, and I think they're stupid if they're going to continue going forward to not utilize these 2 characters. And we already know that they're going to, like Quicksilver, they know what they've got with Quicksilver at this point.
And not just the character, but Evan Peters plays him so well in this movie, man. I got to take my hat off to that guy.
To me, he's got my favorite line in this movie. He's so fun. He's just so personable and it's so great in this movie. And isn't it so weird that Marvel's the one who didn't get it right?
They lost the war of the Quicksilvers to Fox.
They really did, and by a lot too. But they have you have Quicksilver all day, every day. But the next thing is that you got Deadpool. And, Deadpool, you have to watch how you use him, obviously. Mm-hmm. But with those, you have two juggernaut characters with those characters. And they need to utilize them and figure out a way to make them whole and part of the universe, because otherwise they're going to leave money on the table, and that they're not going to leave money on the table.
Right. And I've got a third person I want to throw into the mix. I mean, I think it's been recognized here on the show before how I feel about the character Magneto, but also Michael Fassbender is an actor I'm a pretty big fan of too. So I think if they really write that character right, get Fassbender the right stuff to do, he's another person that could actually carry this franchise on his shoulders, which would be something almost revolutionary, having the villain carry one of these franchises.
I mean, I've always since First Class, I mean, I've been real big, proponents of Fassbender and McAvoy as being these two guys who, we had a great Magneto and a great Professor X, and it's like, man, it's gonna be tough to top those guys. And these guys have gotten in their place, and while they're very different, they're very much filling those roles and everything. And I think they are definitely going to be the anchors that put all this together. But the big thing for me is if you look back on all the X-Men movies, for the most part, Wolverine is the driving, fuel to all of these movies.
I mean, you can't beat Hugh Jackman, and Hugh Jackman can't beat the role of Wolverine. That's what put him on the map.
Yeah,
so
exactly. But
they work together great, but unfortunately, he's got his retirement money now, so he doesn't have to keep doing it.
Exactly. But here's my thing, and for the longest time, they were just like, hey, we're going to phase him out, and people have said, well, we just won't have Wolverine in for a little while, and then maybe we'll kind of bring him back in whenever. But while watching all of these movies and the setup for all of this, I was like, outside of Fassbender and McAvoy, I really did not see this franchise going on a whole heck of a lot longer without Wolverine or somebody like that. And I will say this up top, this movie changed my opinion of that.
Evan Peters can carry this franchise forward as long as they give him his one beautiful scene in every movie. There will be a certain segment to go see it. Spend all your budget on the Quicksilver scene.
Maybe, but I think that's going to wane by the third time we see it. After the third time we've seen it, it's just going to be like you can only see a magic trick so many times before you're just like, whatever, show me something else different. But I think
Are you kidding? They made 6 Police Academy movies. You don't think they can get more than 3 out of Evan Peters?
I think if they switch up the speed, the way they show the speed effect, I think that it'll be just fine.
Yeah, well, I mean, just come up with a good way to implement it. But I mean, overall, I was shocked at how well I thought at the end of the day when we see all the characters together and everything, and I'm like, I kind of want to see all these people in a movie together. I think. The whole getting Scott and Storm.
This is a good time to kind of run down the cast and the characters and comment a little bit, because that's kind of what we're doing here.
All right, very well. Where you want to start us?
Well, I wanted to talk about this Alexandra Shipp that played Storm. I thought she was a pleasant surprise. And, there's 2 ways to really be embraced as a character. One is to knock it out of the park. The other is to follow somebody who didn't do a very good job of it. And she kind of did both,
Yeah, agreed. Totally agreed. It's funny, too, because my girls who never thought about Storm ever, now love that character because of this movie, and they love the character design of this version of Storm, and they like the actress for some reason. I never asked them why they like the actress so much, but they do. And
she thanked us all before the movie. That's why.
Oh, is that why? Yeah. Oh, that's right. Hey,
yeah, she had her little intro.
Movies. That's right.
Yeah. AMC, stop it. It's gross.
Oh, they were showing it at Cinemark too, so I think it spanned across franchises.
Good gravy.
But do you guys? Do you guys see her going forward in a bigger role in these movies?
Oh, absolutely, man. Because a couple of things. A couple of reasons. Number one, she's really good. Yep. Number two, Storm has been a leader of the X-Men in the comics. Mm-hmm. I don't think Ty Sheridan is the person to lead the team in future installments. And the way that they've written the character of Cyclops, he doesn't seem ready to lead either. So, they're not going to be able to hang on to Jennifer Lawrence much longer, I suspect. So I really think that Alexandra Shipp is going to be kind of the leader of the pack.
I say you're wrong there. And the reason I say that you're wrong is because Jennifer Lawrence has gone on record, months and months and months ago, saying, "Look, man, my time in this X-Men stuff is kind of coming to a close here. You guys won't be seeing me too awful long here." And I think one of her accountants came to her and said, "Hey, by the way, you ain't got no more Hunger Games movies, lady. That paycheck ain't gonna be coming like it used to." And she was like, "Oh snap, you're right. Maybe I should be doing more of these X-Men movies." And she's since recently just said, "You know what? I'd like to do more of these X-Men movies. Come to think of it." And I'm like,
and I know one of her biggest complaints was the blue makeup and the blue bodysuit. You notice they kind of CGI'd that up and had her in her human form a whole lot more in this movie.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't care who you are. It's lazy, and I don't care how much you don't like it. If you don't like doing that, just get out of the role. Get out.
I would dare say maybe Fox actually pays her on par with Fassbender and McAvoy.
She probably does
at
this rate with her going rate and everything, and her stipulations are, look, I don't want to be in the blue suit 3/4 of the time, even though it never informs the character at all.
Wow.
Never does it inform the character. I was like super stoked at the beginning when she's breaking out Nightcrawler there and actually turns into somebody else for half a second. I'm like, oh, you people remember that she has that ability to do that? Well, I'll be darned.
That is
now,
true.
What about Sophie Turner, Sansa Stark? Sophie Turner is Jean Grey.
I love this
How do you
girl.
guys feel about her?
I don't really know this girl or anything, but I think she captured a lot of this in here. There's a lot behind the eyes that's going on and everything, and I thought she brought a lot to this role. I know they're going to do it way too darn fast, and I hate it for that, but they're going to do some Phoenix crap coming up. I mean, obviously, at the end of the movie, we'll tell you that. But I hope that they stay with her longer and don't, rush down that path, which I know they will.
And you got to remember,
you don't bring in Game of Thrones cast members without putting them in a bigger role. You just don't do it because they already know, oh, hey, there could be some bleed over here. Let's get her in a bigger role. I mean, it just makes sense. And she's still young enough to where 15 years from now, if they're still making these movies, she could still be Phoenix.
And one thing that Chris Claremont did with Jean Grey that really improved on what Stan Lee had done with her before is, she had always been played as, the silly girl of the team. And she was always kind of more quiet and demure because of sort of the attitude of the 60s when they were writing that. By the time the 80s rolled around, he had her be a little bit shy, a little bit demure, a little bit insecure, but at the same time, she was the most powerful being in the universe, and that dichotomy suddenly worked great. She went from doing everything that 60s Sue Storm was doing to being something totally different, totally original. 30 years ago, my life was all about Chris Claremont and the X-Men comics, and the Phoenix Saga was such an important part. Jean Grey was probably the most important character in all of comics, not just Marvel, for a small time in the early to mid 80s. So they really do have to nail this character if they want to tap into what I love about the X-Men. And I do think that Sophie Turner does a good job of playing sort of the insecure, the self-doubting Jean Grey.
But at the same time, also knows that there's something deep down that if she's not careful, you got bad news bears coming down.
And I believe when I see Sophie Turner portraying Jean Grey, I believe this is a really pretty girl who doesn't realize she's pretty. I never believed that for a minute with Famke Jensen. You know what I mean? She there's no way that she didn't have confidence, I just buy it a little bit more with Sophie Turner. So I'm all behind the casting so far, but we will have a few misses as we go on.
Yeah, sure. There's too many cast members for there not to be a few misses.
they got to have this someplace.
What'd you guys think about Poe Dameron as Apocalypse? Oscar Isaac.
I love Oscar Isaac as an actor. I think he's great for a role that just basically is him in a bunch of pancake makeup, just doing nothing. Which, by the way, and it's up on the Facebook page, facebook.com/Hero Movie Podcast. If you'll have to scroll back quite a bit, but I mean, I posted up a picture of what they kind of mocked up Apocalypse is looking like, which was exactly like the bloody comic. And while watching this, I just go, no reason they couldn't have done what, they couldn't have made him actually look like Apocalypse. But given what he has, which is limited material to work with, he's fine. I don't blame any of the Apocalypse stuff on him at all.
Yeah, I don't blame Oscar Isaac. What I would say is I think they wasted a really good actor on a role that could have almost not lost a beat if it had been purely CGI with just voiceover.
Could have been anybody.
Yeah, it could have been anybody, and I feel like that it wasn't the best role for him to take, but hopefully he got a nice paycheck out of it.
You know what kind of bugged me though? Maybe this is a weird thing to be, peeved about. I didn't like the fact that we could see like his regular eyes most of the time.
And I'll tell you what, though, I'm glad they didn't do what used to sort of be a superhero movie trope where if you cast somebody famous, they can never have the mask on. Like, I'm glad he didn't suddenly exhibit the same power Mystique had and just turn into Oscar Isaac and walk around looking like a human until the finale. I'm glad they didn't do that.
You mean like Jennifer Lawrence?
Boom.
I'm glad they didn't do that.
I'm glad they didn't Jennifer Lawrence. Oscar
you didn't see the fat kid from Stand By Me. You didn't see his wife doing that in the original trilogy.
No, you did not. She would. My. I'm sorry. I just had a moment there.
I like to think of him more as the skinny guy from Sliders.
Oh, that works too.
Because we know the fat guy's John Rhys Davies. Let's get to a point that a lot of people are excited about. I was not, and the movie has shown me that my thoughts were justified. Olivia Munn coming in as Psylocke.
Underutilized. I think that the character was underutilized. I love the character of Psylocke. I thought Olivia Munn looked good as Psylocke. Now, I know there's more to the character than just how you look. I don't really know if she's much of an actress or not. I haven't seen her in a lot. But I felt like the character was underutilized, and I can't believe she turned down Vanessa Carlyle for Psylocke, to be honest.
I've seen her in enough things, and I'll tell you something right here, Brucey. She stinks. She's not a good actress. She's a pretty lady, but that's about it. She doesn't bring anything to the party,
Aaron
and people
Rodgers
are like,
said she's pretty good at certain role play.
Yeah, guess who else did? Brett Ratner. So that's her pedigree, and that's not even untrue. But here's the thing, man. People are like, oh, the character got short shrift. I don't think the character got so much short shrift as much as they probably didn't write it for her because she can't act worth a hoot. Olivia Munn could go to a surprise party that she didn't know about and still not look surprised when they bust open the door.
So you're not a fan of her acting prowess?
She's a pretty lady, but she couldn't act her way out of a paper bag.
I don't know why they didn't just save this character for the 90s movie coming out next anyway, because to me, Psylocke is 90s all day. That's Jim Lee. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was kind of wondering if they were laying down some groundwork for an X Factor movie with Archangel. Once Angel gets his metal wings, he becomes Archangel or Archangel, depending on whether or not you pronounce it correctly. And Psylocke is an important member of the team. So with them being horsemen, I thought maybe they're laying down some kind of undercurrent for X-Force out of these guys. But the way the movie ended with Angel perhaps being dead, I'm not sure if that's what they were doing or not.
Yeah. But I don't think that she has anything to get to the game here at all. People are like, oh, she was short shrifted. I don't think she had anything to offer there. And to borrow something from Mr. Keenan, Hollywood quit trying to make Olivia Munn happen.
And also, I think that the directors or the director and the producers of Deadpool should thank her very much for passing on that role because Marina Baccarin nailed it.
She nailed it. She went out of town.
And I can't see Olivia Munn doing that.
Olivia Munn would have made that role stink. Honest to goodness, she would not have pulled it off.
And also, I've never worked with her, but I know that Marina Baccarin is a very nice lady.
Yeah. So, and I hear the opposite about Olivia Munn. Anyways.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I hear things.
I've heard nothing.
Who are you
nothing. I watched G4 one time.
Well, here's the thing, man, and that's what kills me about this because, I remember watching her on G4 back in the day, Attack of the Show. This girl has a great personality. She's funny. She's witty. She knows how to make fun of herself. I mean, it seems like what every guy would like. A pretty girl who can kind of have fun with the boys and stuff like that. But when she gets into acting, man, she stinks. She's just no darn good at it. I mean, I'm sorry. I hate to say it, but it's true. She stinks at it. She sucks.
She's like a holdover from the Wizard days of fantasy casting where it was all about what the person looked like and not whether or not they could act.
Exactly. We only ever got one of those truly correct with Picard
Patrick Stewart,
as Professor X. But other than that, those have always been very hit and miss. Though I will say the one that I really liked back in the day, and now it's too far gone at this point, but kind of Usual Suspects era of Kevin Spacey being the Riddler.
I never thought much about that.
I like that. That was always one that was just like, yes, at that time, 100%. Now,
does Frank Gorshin have a kid?
Gary Gorshin. He's going to be the Riddler.
Gary Gorshin.
He's 54 years old now. It'll be his first role.
I'm coming for you, Batman. Hold on a second. Let me shore up my trust.
Rumor is his mom is Eartha Kitt, so he's Gary Gorshin Kitt.
He's been a butcher for the last 30 years, but now we're going to throw him into comic book movies just on account of the last name.
Now, let's talk a little bit about Jubilee. Because
I think we've already I think by you saying let's talk about Jubilee, we've covered every aspect of her in the movie.
But did you not feel like they made a little bit bigger deal about Jubilee than they should have?
Of course. They somebody posted it up on a thing and they were just like, hey, so Jubilee never once in this movie displays any powers. I'm like, oh, so she's just a girl in a yellow jacket.
Man, they threw her in all the trailers, made a big deal out of Jubilee finally getting done right. And I think they might have squandered an opportunity to win a few folks over by using her better. Because
no, we don't, because Jubilee sucks and you know it.
But
I think they used her perfectly.
You cannot overstate just how important the 92 animated series was to a lot of people.
They tried to
Jubilee
shoehorn
was
her.
a massive part of that series, and I think that you're better off just not trying to. You shouldn't try to sell those people on a movie with Jubilee if there's not really much Jubilee in the movie.
They shouldn't have put her in the cartoon either. They tried to ham-fist it in like kids will relate to fireworks hands girls.
She was a great part of the cartoon, man. I think fans of the cartoon are the people who are adult Jubilee fans now.
If you're an adult Jubilee fan, hearmoviepodcast@gmail.com. Explain yourself.
Hold on, I'm typing right now.
Explain yourself, because I don't know that this person exists.
But I guess a little bit of the behind the scenes, though, I think the actress that played Jubilee, I think that her father's like a high-ranking executive at Yahoo, and maybe by
I thought you were going to say
her up a little, they got
Fox.
a little more coverage on Yahoo for what that's worth. But I kind of feel like it was a little bit of a financial behind the scenes going on there, too, because it's her first movie role.
Hey, how do you think Taylor Swift got to where she is?
You mean Jubilee's dad helped her out, too?
Yep. Look, the whole thing, the movie, okay, I mean, I sound like I'm crapping on it a whole bunch, but I actually really did like this movie.
I like the movie a lot, too, but I'm trying to point out some of the downs to go with the ups because we talked about a lot. I think I was lukewarm on Ty Sheridan.
I think I feel like Ty Sheridan could grow. I mean, that's what I'm hoping that will happen with that character, is that we see the kind of reluctance of Scott kind of getting in there, and then like something happens in like the next movie where he's got to really step up his game and everything and become somebody. So
and for the record, I was never a fan of James Marsden as Cyclops, so I think anybody but Marsden I was going to give a chance. So I'm giving the guy a chance. I just I would give him sort of a middle of the road grade. He didn't do bad, didn't knock my socks off, just like a C+.
I've never liked the character of Cyclops, so I'm hoping that they turn him into a bad guy in the next.
That's precisely where I was about to go, because I was just about to say I don't blame this on James Marsden. I blame this on Cyclops being kind of a crappy character.
And that's where it's going to stink to lose Wolverine, because some of the most fun about having Cyclops in a movie or in a comic book is to have Wolverine pick on him all the time. You know what I mean? That dynamic, everybody's on Wolverine's side, but we're not going to have a Wolverine necessarily anytime soon.
I totally agree, because it's not creepy at all to have a 55-year-old guy leering at an 18-year-old girl.
Oh, believe you me, in that scene when we're in the Weapon X plan, I'm just like, well, he's got to go, because this is just too weird.
Leave that to the executives, not to the characters.
They're like, a long time's passed. She looks exactly the same age, but as far as you know, she's 38.
Oh man, that gives Old Man Logan a real creepy double entendre now.
Yeah, it's a little bit much, but I mean, it is what it is.
What'd you guys think about Nightcrawler, man? Compared to Alan Cummings, is it Cumming or Cummings?
Cummings.
Yeah, compared to the only other Nightcrawler we've had on screen, I like this. Is it Cody Smith McPhee or something like that?
Sure.
I can't remember his name.
I'm not looking at IMDb right now for character. For actor names, but I gotta take this back to my kids, because my kids actually like the X-Men franchise more than I do, and they loved Nightcrawler, and Nightcrawler is one of their favorite characters, and they thought that he was great. They couldn't believe how good he was. They thought that the actor himself was terrific. They loved the characterization, and they even brought up the fact that they really liked that they kept the fact that he has, the way his hands look, that they didn't try to make him more human.
I love that he's German.
Yes.
Oh,
kept
yes.
that proper.
I really loved when he tried to count to 3 and he only had 2 fingers.
He's got a little thummy sort of kind of deal.
But I'm very happy with the look, the way the character looked, and I thought that the actor did just fine. You don't have to do too much with Nightcrawler,
Yeah, I
the
like
best part about Nightcrawler is when he bamfs and you don't see him. So I felt like they handled the character really well. I'm glad they didn't kill him off because I'm looking forward to seeing him around in future installments.
Yeah, I think this kid can act, can bring something to it. I think there's a lot of there's a little something behind all that makeup, man. I think the kid can act. I like they kept the religious stuff in with that. I thought that was good.
Yeah, that was a nice touch.
Again, it's more little tiny things that people that aren't fans don't really know. But I mean, I liked little bits like that. And I like the display of powers and stuff when he's fighting Angel there in the cage and everything, a la kind of the first X-Men. And it was fun.
And what about the Blob, man? The Blob got such a short shrift. He's one of my favorite characters, and we just barely get him in this movie at all.
Why do you love the Blob? You are you're just the oddest duck there is, Bruce.
Oh, man. And I thought we're going to get like a redo of X-Men Origins Wolverine. We've got Blob in a boxing ring, but then he's just getting carried out, and we don't get to see the fight.
Oh, drat.
I immediately thought of you, Bruce, when I saw him getting carried out of the ring. I was like, oh, Bruce isn't going to like that.
And what about Lucas Till? Is that who played Angel, Lucas Till?
I believe so. And that's another character that just you didn't really do a whole heck of a lot with him, so how can I feel one way or another about the kid?
I'll say that...
he looks good with his shirt off. That's about all we know.
There were some aspects I didn't like. I mean, it didn't feel like Warren Worthington III, and even a little bit to me, because, he's like the spoiled rich kid of the X-Men team, and this guy seemed more like Constantine with wings at times. But I did love the visual of the metal wings. I never would have dreamed I was going to see Archangel as the Angel of Death on the big screen when he was in the comics. So I did enjoy the way that they designed his wings, and the way they worked it into the story worked for me.
Yeah, I mean, that was fine. I mean, standout stuff for me, Michael Fassbender just being on screen, just doing anything. That is where I was just like, this franchise has lucked out getting such an amazingly good actor to play an amazingly good role.
And but to you guys, it didn't feel at all like he was just walking through this movie, because it felt to me like he was walking through it a little bit.
It felt good to me when he was in Poland. Once he became Magneto and he was one of the Horsemen and he was a pawn of Apocalypse, I think he was playing the role of mindless minion well, but that makes you look like an actor who's not putting any effort into it at the same time.
I'll agree with that. That once he got kind of the Magneto outfit, if you will, it did kind of it did feel like he was kind of phoning it in a little bit. But yeah, I mean, especially all that
what was his direction?
Stuff.
Stand there with your hands out. I mean, that's all that he did. Once he got the chance to put on the Magneto garb and be a minion of Apocalypse. But I felt like I could really, really feel some emotion in that scene at the woods where his family's killed.
That's great.
My 10-year-old daughter was with me. She starts bawling openly in the theater and laying her head on my shoulder when the little girl dies. And, I could kind of feel his pain there when he just takes that locket in such a cool scene, the coolest kill of the movie, when he just flings the locket around and it pierces everybody's throat and comes back into his hand, and he basically curses God. Is this what you want from me? And I also felt that Fassbender was bringing his touch to Magneto at the end when he's saying his goodbyes to McAvoy. So I think when he's given a human moment, he does a good job, but he's kind of given the role of essentially a robot when he's full-on Magneto bringing the end of the world around.
Yeah, I think we need more of the future past kind of vibe in there with everything, and I would like to, and Sean, I think you're right. I think we need to get like more of him and do have more of the kind of adventures of Magneto and Professor X kind of buddying up to not necessarily defeat an evil or something. I don't know where exactly.
Well, I mean, Magneto works great as the bad guy that. He's like the Malcolm X to Charles's Martin Luther King Jr., which is kind of confusing since Charles is Professor X. But I mean, they both want the same thing. They just have very different approaches as to how to get it. And then what's great is they're against each other until they have a common cause to support. And that's why when I love Magneto the best. I mean, my opinion on who my favorite characters are will change probably by the hour. But many, many times I felt that Magneto's my favorite Marvel character of all, just because he's evil, but not really. You know what I mean? And the way that he can be ruthless in pursuing his goals, but at the same time, he can understand that, he wants to protect mutants. That's what he wants to do. That's the same thing Charles wants to do. So at times, there can be a threat to mutants that the two of them can agree on to work together.
And I think they do a really good job in this movie going back and really kind of showing all of these seeds and stuff and really giving you that fuel that really helps propel that character forward and everything. And I like how we even cut back to Singer's first X-Men movie when we do the trip to Auschwitz. That sounds like a bad vacation.
And the character and the dynamic, him and McAvoy hold on to it very well. What was given to them by Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen, I think they're holding on to and keeping alive, incubating it in their own way. But there's got to be this whole idea that Magneto loves Charles more than anybody else on Earth, but he will kill him if he gets in his way. That something about that dynamic. It feels like
so good.
Maybe some high drama from an old Civil War movie or something. That whole brother against brother thing. But I love that drama. The fact that they do love to speak with one another, and they're it's like you're the only person in the world that understands me, but unfortunately I may have to kill you today. I like that dynamic.
And I'll say this, I mean, to me this whole thing felt very much like a comic book in all the right ways, at least to me. Anybody else kind of get that? Or is it?
Yeah, I thought they did real good there.
Yeah.
But I mean, I enjoyed everything. I like the kind of arcs that they're so, and this is a movie that, honestly, we can't really go beat by beat because so much happens in this movie. And I think that's to its credit and everything. I thought this was going to be just shallow and kind of boring, but they really stepped it up. I mean, there are absolute plot holes, there are absolute problems with it, but ultimately at the end of the day, the credits, rolled, and I was like, I don't know what everybody was complaining about.
Well, one thing I want to ask you guys about, I mean, we've touched on it, but I want to talk about it a little bit more. How did you feel about the Quicksilver scene in this movie as compared to Days of Future Past Quicksilver scene? They paired it with period appropriate music. For the previous movie, it was Time in a Bottle. This time it's Sweet Dreams by the Eurythmics. Do you guys have like one that you liked better, or, column A, column B? How do you guys feel about the Quicksilver scene? Because it was my favorite part of Days of Future Past. It was my favorite part of Apocalypse.
I mean, I thought this one was good. The big thing to me, though, is that there are points in it where a lot of CGI looks shoddy and cheap.
Didn't bother me for some reason. Maybe my eye's not as critical to that. The only time the CGI really bothered me was at the end when Apocalypse was dissolving. He really, really looked like they didn't spend much time or money on him. But the whole Sweet Dream sequence, I loved it. And you think I've seen this gag before, but they worked new stuff into it. They put it in a new situation. The stakes were a little bit higher. The music was different. There was a different attitude. My gut is to say I think I liked it better in Apocalypse than I did in Days of Future Past.
Well, he's got so much more to do. Here's the big thing. Next time out, he better fail. I want him to fail.
Next time out, what happens is he's in the middle of doing his thing. We're all laughing. We're all clapping. We're rocking out to Nirvana because it's going to be the one set in the 90s.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, some other guy just walks up to him and he's in that same space and he realizes there's another speedster or some other mysterious person who can do what he does and everything goes awry.
Ends what he's doing right then and there and just turns the whole situation on its head. To me, that has to happen for the next one.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe they bring the Wizard into it.
The Wizard.
The Wizard.
She whiz.
So to me, the last one, Days of Future Past, is better, and it's far superior because there's the element of surprise.
I was still surprised on this one. I wasn't expecting it. They go out and all of a sudden
you weren't.
I was not expecting it.
Have these scenes,
and even when the bee is starting to flap its wings more slowly. I thought, okay, so what is Apocalypse doing something? Is Charles doing something? And then all of a sudden I see the spray painted silver high top step into the screen, and I realize, oh man, here it is. Here it is. So it did sneak up on me. Even when they cued the music, you would have thought, I mean, I saw it the second time, and when I knew it was coming, I still loved it.
I thought you were about to say I was still shocked.
Don't get me wrong. I love the scene. The scene's great, but there is so much that the scene in the last movie adds so much to that movie. Whereas in this one, for me anyway, I was completely anticipating that happening. 2, if it didn't happen, there was going to be disappointment. And 3, they've already done this gag, so
it's a cool thing.
It is very cool, and
they
would have been dumb not to use it. But they really they need to come up with a different form and function next time. Yeah. I don't think that the answer is more of this and also with another guy. I think that the answer is let's see a different approach to showing how fast he is.
Here's what I'm worried. I'm worried that they may have put themselves in a catch-22 with me, where if they don't do it, I'll complain because it was my favorite part. Then if they do it, I'll say they're just repeating themselves.
That's
like
why
I'm worried I've painted them into a corner.
That's why I say
I'm going to be disappointed.
That's why I say he needs to fail. That's why, like, half
and that's
to
why
3.
I like the idea of somebody else who can get into that same zone that he's in.
I don't know that we need somebody in there, but something tragic needs to happen to where everybody is along for the ride and they're like, yes, this is the most awesome thing, and then just tragedy.
I've just come up with the answer. The answer is that they need to completely do a steal of the $6 Million Man Running Fast with the.
Hey, he did have the $6 Million Man T-shirt on in this movie.
Yeah. He did too. So there's some foreshadowing.
And Rush.
And Sean, I've got to ask you.
Yeah.
Did you notice Scott Summers' shoes?
I did. Of course I did.
What model were those?
I believe that they're the first year Adidas, because they're like a kind of low, like a low, almost like wrestling sneaker. They look like. So I'm gonna guess they're literally just called first year Adidas, I believe.
Okay, because for a moment I wondered if he had some white Sambas on, but I couldn't get a good enough look. And boy, when I first glimpsed at the stripes, I thought, man, why did those have to be so nice? If we had another week of Winter Twos, that would be great.
Oh man, yeah. We just turn this into the Winter 2 podcast.
God comes from the poor side of town. I'll say this: I like that. We get the Scott introduction through Havoc and everything. I thought that was nice, keeping with form and function.
And what did you guys think about Rose Byrne? The way they dressed her up to look like an 8th grade social studies teacher.
I like
her lady slacks and everything.
I hated it because I love Rose Byrne, and this Rose Byrne did nothing for me.
And early on, I felt like she was auditioning to be the next Indiana Jones, that sequence in Egypt.
the little... I don't.
Yeah, they put her in the lady slacks.
Still better than Shia LaBeouf.
Yeah.
Definitely. But I did, it was kind of cheesy, kind of corny, not really highbrow humor, but I liked it when Charles says, I just want to go check her out, check it out, check the situation out. I like that little stuff. His little romance coming back up.
Come on, man. That's such a Leslie fastball. I mean, come on.
But I'll say this. I think with the end and everything, just the kind of giving her the memory back and everything, that worked really well for me.
And I like the way that Cerebro was like the 1983 mutant version of Facebook, so he could kind of cyber stalk her a little bit and see what she's up to.
What you up to there, baby? Oh, nice.
Oh, man. And,
Egypt,
let's talk about the Blackbird. We get a glimpse at the Blackbird, and I think they're going to use it in the movie, but it gets destroyed, and then they steal that government plane that I think looks a lot more like a bird, and I wonder if that's going to kind of be their go-to vehicle in the next movie.
I don't know.
Because it had a cool aesthetic to it.
Maybe. Yeah, but what is that? Is that movie? Is that all movie, or is that from the comics? I didn't recognize.
Well, I mean, the SR-71 was the Blackbird in the comics, the big black jet he was working on that got destroyed. That's
right,
100%.
And I noticed, I know that one, but the one that they take out of the
I think that's
the government facility.
That looks pure movie to me, but I could be wrong. There could have been an updated version of the Blackbird. I just
don't know why we didn't go Blackbird. That's just my whole thing. It didn't make a whole heck of a lot of sense.
I kind of lost touch with the X-Men in the years after Claremont left the title, so they probably have had other versions of the Blackbird in there.
Maybe, but like to me, it's just like why would you show this awesome thing and then just destroy it before we ever get to step foot one inside of it?
Maybe Bryan Singer making some subtle commentary about how he's updating everything. I don't know. I mean, I've seen other times when like something that people didn't like from a comic book shows up and they go, "Oh, that would just be stupid," and they discard it. Or even like the purple pants in that Ed Norton Hulk movie.
Yeah, that was fun. I like that bit.
So maybe he was trying to say something clever by destroying the Blackbird, but I like the Blackbird, so I kind of wanted it to be in there.
It's iconic, man.
Yeah.
You know what I think they should have done? And here's the thing. You own the rights. There's no reason you can't do this, Fox. Somewhere in the background of that bloody mansion, why on God's green earth did you not CGI a Colossus and a Negasonic Teenage Warhead somewhere's in the background?
Well, it's 1983. Negasonic's not been born yet, but they could have put Colossus there.
Fair enough.
Well, come on, man. I mean, they've been messing around with that stuff already in this movie.
Who cares? You know what I'm saying? We got 60-year-old Hugh Jackman showing up in this, so what's the diff?
And I do love it, man. It was like a direct response to the Deadpool movie where he said, hasn't this mansion already blown up like 6 times? And it blows up again in this movie.
And then we fix it. I love how we fix it all with telekinetic powers. What a bunch of malarkey.
Oh, man. Yeah, it looked way too easy.
Hey, Gene, just, put that ceiling truss right back up there. That'll be fine. That's going to, I know we don't have no hammers and nails and nothing, but just put it back in place where it goes. Like builders do.
Looking at that mansion, man, that thing is a beautiful piece of work. I would happily give up the use of my legs if I could inherit that mansion and some superpowers.
Life goals, Bruce. Life goals. What can I say?
I would go get me some of those robo legs from Tony Stark. I'd be just fine.
Can I have some Tony Stark robo legs, please?
Give me some of War Machine's legs. I just need them on the weekend. That's when I like to go dancing. He can have them during the week.
You don't go dancing.
I would
if I lived in that mansion. The dancing would come to me.
He sits back in his electric X-Men wheelchair and just goes, the dancing comes to me.
I would have Weird Al playing his polka party music live in the mansion.
You really know how to spin the green, Bruce. Let me tell you.
Spin the green.
Tell you, you're something else, man. So before we get to the final review here and everything, give our old patented Robin ratings, we got to find out how this movie relates back to one of the most spectacular men in Hollywood, Sylvester Stallone.
Oh, thank you, Adam. I happen to have a prepared statement.
Oh, okay.
I knew it. I knew this was going to be a tough Stallone connection. The second I saw who was in this movie and where they shot this movie, a Stallone connection was going to be damn near impossible. And a bunch of French people probably worked on this thing. You know who doesn't work with a ton of French people? Sylvester Stallone. Saw this coming a mile away. It sucks. Had to do a ton of work on this one. I'm not going to lie to you. It sucked. I still have one. I still have a Stallone connection because I'm a professional and right and true. So what is the Stallone connection? Well, I'm very glad you asked, Agent Pierce. Lauren Shula Donner.
Really?
Lauren Shula Donner helped produce this X-Men Apocalypse movie. This is the lady who has produced everything, so we probably shouldn't be surprised that she's worked with the only guy who bleeds red, white, and tomato sauce, Sylvester Stallone. Lauren Shula Donner produced a movie about assassins. A movie about assassins called Assassins. And it starred Sylvester Stallone and Antonio, how you say, Banderas. As it turns out, Stallone actually behaved himself on this movie. It's kind of unfortunate, actually, because I love those stories. No, but he actually behaved himself on this movie, so much so that Banderas and Stallone actually became real good friends after this movie. Huh. So good, in fact, that Banderas set up the meeting that would eventually bring Stallone to his role in Spy Kids 3D. It's crazy. So there you have it, Agent Pierce. This week's Stallone connection. Now, Phantom X and Blob, let's review this movie so we can so we can watch whatever garbage superhero is coming, because there's one coming, because the last couple ones that have come out have been really good.
Oh, but TMNT 2 is going to be great.
No, that's going to suck. That's
going to be awesome, man.
I think you're going to eat your words next week, Keenan.
It's going to be better than the last one. The last one was great.
You guys aren't wrong, because I really expected to go into this movie with it being bad. I really thought this was going to be bad. And as a matter of fact, I was kind of hoping that it would be a little bit bad, because it's always funnier when the movies are bad.
Yeah.
But this movie isn't bad. It's just not great.
Exactly. Well, let's get exactly how great or not great it is from our good friend Bruce Leslie. Bruce, where does X-Men Apocalypse fall on the official H&P Robin rating system for you, sir?
Well, before I give my rating, just real quickly, maybe it's appropriate that it's post-Stallone connection, but what did you guys glean from the post-credit scene?
Oh, shoot. We didn't even talk about that.
Yeah, that's why I thought this is a good time to talk about it.
Good
Is it Mr. Sinister?
That's what I
Well,
put
he's
together.
Nathaniel Essex, and it does say Essex Corp, and they did get some of Wolverine's genetic material, so that sets up X-23 to maybe be in the future installments as the Wolverine character, the young Asian female Wolverine. And so they could go with Mr. Sinister, which I was shocked Mr. Sinister wasn't somehow tied into this movie because he's so intimately intertwined with Apocalypse in the comics. But they've got two outs here. They could go with Mr. Sinister. They could also use this. They could say Mr. Sinister made Weapon X and they recover her in the next movie or something like that. But yeah, that's the Essex and Essex Corp, I suspect.
I what I would really like to see, because we know it's set in the 90s, is I really want to see my favorite X-Men storyline of all time, which is Extinction Agenda, because it took place in the 90s. Really great bad guy with Cameron Hodge. Is that his name? Really, really great story, and I would love to see that next.
Well, I do know that Simon Kinberg has said he really wants to do the Phoenix Saga right, and they really set up the Phoenix Saga here too. And I got to tell you, man,
save it for like two more movies, and then you can do it.
But Jean Grey, the Phoenix Force, the Phoenix Saga, the Dark Phoenix Saga, that is Chris Claremont's X-Men to me. That and Days of Future Past. So, and the Morlock Massacres and a whole bunch of other stuff. But I'm looking forward to it. Maybe I need to put my brakes on, but they'll probably lay down some more hints for it in the next movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, just sprinkle it. Just sprinkle it. All right. What's your rate?
Now I'm prepared to rate this film, and it is a film, much like the yellow stuff I scrape off my teeth. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not.
Are you writing? Are you in another bit?
No.
What's going on here?
Sometimes I forget just how important Chris Claremont's X-Men were to me, but I've tried to stress that here. About 10 years ago, or I'm sorry, about 30 years ago, time's getting away from me, but about 30 years ago, those stories were the most important thing in all of comics, and probably the most important thing in my life when I was like 10 to 15 years old. And this movie really taps into that nostalgia with me. I love Storm with the Mohawk. I know that Apocalypse isn't really much more than a prop in this story, and I've always thought that the character was kind of lame in the comics as well. But all the characters around him just grab my emotions. They turn me into a 10-year-old again. And I know this movie isn't being received well by the critics, but I think it's going to be a crowd pleaser, and I'm going to give it a Tim Drake.
Mr. Keenan.
You know what? Since Bruce started with a bit, I also am going to start with a bit. So, Adam, go ahead and ask me how you and Bruce are different than my wife.
Sean, how are me and Bruce different from your wife?
You guys are still here.
Boom!
Kaboom! And I'm still around for the X-Men franchise. I am going to give it I'm going to give it a Tim Drake. Yeah, Tim Drake.
Sweet.
It's Tim Drake's all around, guys. Honest to goodness, when this movie started out and I sat down, I was just like, man, this is going to be like, this thing will be lucky to get a Stephanie Brown from me, man. I'm going to try to put it up as much as I can. And ultimately, at the end of the day, despite all of its flaws and everything, it's still shown out to me as a good film. I mean, I sat down and I enjoyed a good X-Men movie, much like I would enjoy an X-Men comic. Usually not perfect, but, hits enough of the right points to where I was walking out with a smile on my face. And honest to goodness, I mean, after I saw it, I was just like, I actually wouldn't even mind seeing this in 3D even, because I think there are a couple of things in there that would probably look pretty dope in 3D. So I may even see this again. So, but I mean, a shocking Tim Drake for me on this one. Sorry, but Hollywood, stop trying to make Olivia Munn happen. It ain't happening. It's over.
By the way, I stole that from Reddit.
Well, I don't care. Everything's stolen from the internet at some point or another.
Yeah. The next X-Men movie is going to be called X-Men Psylocke, and it's going to bring in Captain Britain. Olivia Munn's going to be the principal. It's going to be great.
I think we've got our first really, really bad X-Men movie after X-Men Origins Wolverine.
I would say X-Men Last Stand is the worst one.
It's not good, but it's not as bad as Wolverine. Just knocks that one out of the park.
Yeah, honestly, I take Last Stand over Wolverine.
Yeah. I mean,
if for no other reason than the fact that James Marsden's not in it.
Send that fool out to the woods to die. So that's it, everybody. Next week, we're going to be joining yet again to talk about another new release, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. What's this one called? It ain't Secret of the Use. I just want to go to that.
Out of the Shadows.
Out of the Shadows. I was on the Out of the Shell tour back in 1990.
Man, that's awesome.
Featuring Arrow in a hockey mask. I can't wait.
It was terrible. But
surprising, really?
Surprisingly terrible. But yeah, man, so we're going to be talking about the new Turtles movie, and rumors on the set, man, everybody was just like, they were super stoked about this director because this guy came from loving Ninja Turtles as a kid and everything, and the first director didn't care much about him, didn't have any kind of connection, and everybody was like, the vibe on this set this time is very, very different, and they know what they're making, and everybody was super stoked and excited about it, as am I at this point, because those trailers
you guys
have been pretty
should
good.
really get your hopes all the way up, as high as your hopes can go.
Look,
we have never seen Bebop and Rocksteady on the big screen before. Don't take this from me,
Looks
Keenan.
like they're having fun, man. Gosh, it looks like they're having fun. I hope it's good. Look, listen, as many superhero movies as we review, trust me, my expectations are always at least a minimum because we've been burned so many times, so many times. So we'll be back next week to talk a little bit more about that. Bruce, where can we find more of your work on the internet this week in the meantime, sir?
You know what? I want to give a shout out to a friend of the show, Bubba Wheat. Flights, Nights, and Movie Nights is his website, and he put up a really nice and accurate review of our podcast over there, Flights, Nights, and Movie Tights, or Flights, Tights, and Movie Nights. So please go check it out, folks.
Very, very good stuff. Anything else? We're just going to ignore the rest of your work? Good. Keenan.
I wanted to do something super nice like Bruce, but I don't have anything at the ready. So you can find me at Hero Movie Sean on Twitter. I put up new video on my YouTube channel, Angry Gay Spider-Man. It used to be every day. My life does not allow me to put up new content every day, but I will put it up soon.
It's tough. We get it. And of course, our other podcast, the Preacher Podcast, and go out there, review us on the iTunes, subscribe on Stitcher, wherever finer podcasts are aggregated. And we'd really appreciate that. Even though there's no new Preacher episode this week, we're still going to do an episode. We got some stuff to talk about, and I think we're going to plug in probably a little bit of audio in there, talking. You might hear HMP actually mentioned on stage or something like that. You never know. So we'll be doing some stuff like that. And of course, my other podcast, The Film Find, at thefilmfind.com. This week we'll be talking X-Men and that horrible new Alice in Wonderland movie, Oy vey. No good for me. That's how my life runs, kids. And maybe Kindergarten Cop 2. I heard
that this Alice in Wonderland's a little Doctor Who-ish.
I haven't seen it just yet. I'm seeing it probably Tuesday. I don't know. I'm not looking forward to it because I hadn't seen the first one, and I watched it last night, and the first one is pretty awful.
It's probably the worst movie that ever made $1 billion.
So I'm not looking forward to that. So thefilmfind.com, that's where Adam curses about how bad movies are. So why don't you head on down there, man?
Why isn't it called that?
That's a subtitle. So yeah, man, join us back here next week for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Out of the Shadows. For Sean, Keenan, Bruce, Leslie, I'm Adam Portrais. Stay super, everybody.
Bye, Marty Navy.